Alright, y'all, it's time for a new gun that I picked up recently, and truth be told, the only reason why I got this gun is because I was just kind of curious to see how it worked, how it would play out, how it compared to a certain other gun that I have. So, what I picked up was a Walther CCP M2. There you go, you see the CCP right there on the slide. So, reason why I got this was a number of reasons, but mostly because I was just curious to see how it would perform, and we'll get into that definitely in this video. So, for one, it's a Walther, and if you know me, you know I like Walthers, so I knew it was, man, this is going to be a pretty good piece, right? Because Walther makes good stuff. Second, the operating system in this is pretty unique. As far as pistols go, it's very unusual. It's a gas delayed blowback, quite like a P7, which I also have and quite enjoy and like shooting a lot. So, I thought, hey, this is a super modern iteration of that kind of operating system. Let's take it for a spin and see how it compares, right? And that was another big reason. Second reason, I guess that was second reason. Third reason, I've just seen a lot of people enjoying these things, and I just really wanted to see if it was something I'd be interested in. So I ended up buying one from Gunbuyer online. They had these going for about $300. I thought, what the heck, it's only $300 for a Walther pistol. How bad can it be, right? Well, I was actually a little. I'll just finish it up right now and just say, I went to go shoot this today, and I put about 170 something rounds through this, which honestly, that's not a whole lot to really evaluate an entire pistol, but it's what I had on hand at the time and all I had time for, because I had somewhere else to be when I was shooting this. So I put about as much different kinds of ammo and different ranges and all kinds of stuff to test this as thoroughly as I could for the limited amount of time and ammo that I had available. So I came to a few conclusions, and I have them all written here, which I will go over, just to give my impressions about this thing, which honestly overall have been a bit disappointing, to say the least. So I am not necessarily a massive fan of this gun quite yet. Maybe it'll redeem itself, maybe it won't. We'll see. I'm going to shoot it a little bit more in some different environments, different ranges and stuff like that, and we'll see how it does. But for the moment, I'm honestly, it's a $300 gun, and it definitely shows, right? So let's get into a quick takedown. So the claim to fame for the M2 models versus the M1 is that if you know anything about the CCP line, is that the M1 models had an absolutely atrocious takedown with this little gizmo thing back here. So that's the back of the striker, right? So this has a very, very unconventional takedown with a lot of the other pistols that you're used to seeing with the usual Browning actions, right? So you can go look at other videos on how the M1 takes apart and the nightmare that thing was. You have to use a tool and all the rest of that kind of gubbins. But I'll just show real quick how the M2 takes apart and why this is such a big deal, especially for me when I was buying these, because M1s were available for a long, long time, but I wanted the M2 because it had a better takedown. So, gun is safety check. Striker is cocked, but you need to decock it, so you just pull the trigger, and then what you got to do is that little circle piece in there is all one assembly, so you push that in, and then there's a little bar right there, and you push that over, and then that back of this pops out like that. I like to get the striker spring out of the way a little bit there, and then you just kind of pull back a little bit and pull up and off. Pretty much like a P7. All right, so you can see there, barrel's all fixed and everything. Nothing unusual there. I have just cleaned this, and it was absolutely filthy, as blowback firearms tend to be. Nothing really special here with this. It's a usual polymer frame with a steel insert or metal insert. I don't know if it's steel. It's probably steel. Fixed barrel design with the gas chamber sitting right underneath the barrel. You can see the dark little hole right there. That's the gas chamber. Wow, that sounded ominous. It's the slide. Usual big old recoil spring that goes around the barrel. And the slide itself has the striker spring sitting out the back. And you can see the striker in its channel right in there. And you see the little red piece in there? That's the little red dot you see in the back of the slide when it is cocked and ready to fire. And that's a little piston hanging right there. And we'll talk a little bit about that later once I get into the pros and cons. But we'll put this back together for right now. I just want to show you guys the takedown, how this thing works. So a lot of people find this part a little bit difficult. I never really found it particularly hard to get this back together, but naturally being on camera, it is going to make it a little more difficult. There we go. Now, take that little striker spring there, kind of line it up with the back of the plate, push that in until it clicks. There we go. And now it's back to where it needs to be. Ooh, hand slipped. Actually, no, it's not back where it needs to be. Okay, so that's going to get into one of my cons here about this. So if you do not set that striker spring just right, if you don't set it just right against that little back plate there, the gun cannot go back far enough to actually reset the striker. It just can't. So hopefully I got this right this time. Yep, sure did. There we go. Good to go. So let's get into the pros first. So we have here, this is an inexpensive firearm at $300. You may be paying more depending on where you get it. I've seen as high as like $460, $465 for these things, not including tax. So that's pretty expensive. But I managed to shop around and find this thing for about $300. So it is relatively inexpensive. Now, next, good ergonomics. So Walther pistols are pretty much known for their great ergonomics, and this is no different. The grip texture here, the grip shape and everything is very reminiscent of like a PPQ, you know, with the weird kind of squiggly lines and everything. This thing just really fits my hand well, and pretty much everybody likes how this fits in their hand. The controls are well placed. So you have your slide lock release lever right here. It's in a natural spot that I can hit it with, you know, my thumb up and down, no problem. The safety is mostly a no factor. I almost never use it, but if you had to, it's very easy to flip on and off. No big deal. Magazine release though is a negative. I do not like how this magazine release is situated. That little bar that's sitting right here, that little gate, is in such a way that I cannot use the knuckle of my thumb there to hit it enough for it to come out. I have to I have to shift my my grip to get the magazine to come out. I don't like that. It's not to say I can't do it. I just don't like it. I really wish they had made these with paddle mag releases, because paddle mag releases are superior to button releases. That's just facts, and I'm not going to argue that point. Next up is that this pistol is actually very, very slim. You know, for a single stack 9mm, it's very slim, compact, it's good size. Next, this gun is accurate, very, very accurate. So despite my incredibly limited experience with this thing, I was shooting one-handed at 15 yards with this, and I was getting one ragged hole of 15 yards, about 3 inches wide. Considering I'd never shot this before, and I don't really know exactly where I'm supposed to hold with this thing, and that the sights are super, super minimal, which is a con. Those are really, really tiny and terrible sights for target shooting. I was quite happy with getting one ragged hole at 15 yards, one-handed, standing. So it is certainly accurate enough to do the job. Is it as accurate as my P7? Not even close. Now, is it mechanically as accurate? That's debatable. With pistols, it's kind of hard to know what their mechanical accuracy is versus their practical shootable accuracy. But I will say, I definitely shoot the P7 better than I do this. And it's not, I don't even necessarily think it's an experience thing, because I only have about 500 rounds through my P7. I've got 170 through this one. You know, I don't necessarily think it's an experience thing. I just don't think I shoot this gun as well as the P7. So, gun is plenty accurate for what you need it to do, and that's ventilating, you know, perps and putting holes in things that need to have holes put in them. So, plenty accurate. Next up is this gun does not heat up anywhere near as badly as a P7 does. or other, pistols, right? So that's one thing a lot of people don't really talk about too much is heat when it comes to pistols and other firearms. Is obviously guns heat up, right? If you put 200 rounds just continuously through any of your pistols and then you start touching the slide or the frame or anything, you're going to notice it's pretty hot. So especially with these gas delayed firearms, all that heat is building up in the gas chamber right down in here, right? So this thing, those kinds of firearms tend to heat up very quickly. And in the case of the P7, once you're done putting even something as minimal as 100 rounds through the gun, it's already too hot and you don't really want to be touching it with your bare hand, right? Well, this one wasn't really that bad. I put about 100 rounds, 125 through it, and it still was not, super, super hot. It was manageable. It wasn't that bad. And it also cooled off a lot faster than the P7 did. The P7, I had it there for comparison today too as well. Put 50 rounds through it, and it's already it's pretty warm, uncomfortably warm. This can definitely shoot a lot longer than the P7 can. So that's a good point. The next good point is that this gun does actually feed hollow points reliably, just as well as FMJs, and that's good because its primary purpose being a defensive firearm, you kind of want to be able to use defensive ammo, which means hollow points. If your gun cannot feed hollow points reliably, I would not really want to carry it. I would not recommend carrying it. So that's just a test I do with all pistols that I have. I see if they can feed hollow points, and this one certainly can. So the last pro I have for this is that the Takedown is vastly improved versus the M1. So good on them for changing it and making it a much, much simpler system. Now, that is the only pros that I could think of for this gun, and we'll get into the negatives here just coming up because there is a lot of them. So, got a whole list here. Let's start from the top. So, first con is the sights on this suck. They are teeny tiny. They're little 3-dot there. You can see the front and back. But the actual sight picture itself, look at that. It has so much space between the front sight and the rear sight. Look at that. You can just move it over like that. They're not great. They're very, very mediocre, as with a lot of things on this pistol. Very, very mediocre. They work. I was able to get, combat accuracy out of it. I was able to, be able to put holes in a perp at reasonable distances just fine, even at speed, but they are absolutely not my favorite sights. Next up is another con is the trigger on this thing is very strange. So I don't like it. Let's just put it short and simple, sweet. I don't like the trigger on this because, let's just cock it here. So let's just start with trigger pull weight. So this trigger pull is deceptively heavy depending on how you shoot it, right? So the way I tend to shoot a lot of triggers is let me put it this way maybe. So what I like to do is I'll bring it back as far back as I can to a wall. I'll hold it there, and then at the very last point till it breaks, that's when I'll apply the final bit of pressure and have it fire, right? To me, that's always been the most accurate way for me to shoot a pistol is just hold it back to the point where it's almost going to break and then apply that final bit of pressure, boom, let it fire. If I do that with this pistol, the trigger pull, the last little bit of trigger pull for this thing is enormously heavy. It made my trigger finger very tired very quickly. I did not like it. But if, let me recock it here, if I did a what I call a rolling trigger pull, which is it's like if you've ever fired double action like on a revolver or another double action pistol, you basically just keep pulling constant pressure all the way through. If you're not staging it, and that's one type of trigger pull. I like to call it a rolling trigger pull, right? If you do that with this gun, it is much, much, much easier. It doesn't feel as heavy. I don't perceive it as being as heavy as my normal way of shooting pistols. And that worked fine. That's not what I prefer to do though, because it's weird to me. I don't like it. I'm not as accurate with it. It's weird. I don't like it. So I don't really like the trigger on this all that much. Also, the reset is pretty much all the way out. So if we pull it here, you know, and the reset is right there, and that's the take up right there. So it's pretty much all the way out at the beginning for a reset, which I mean, I don't shoot to reset, so I don't really care too much about that, but it is mildly annoying when you're trying to shoot quickly that you have to pretty much let it all the way out. Next con is I don't. So one of the other claims to fame for a pistol like this is that it's easier to rack. I did not find that to be the case with mine. It felt as close to or very similar to any other pistol that I shoot. I did not perceive it to be any lighter or noticeably lighter in any significant way. So didn't really apply to me. So I don't think you really should advertise something if it doesn't really have a significant, I don't know, or a noticeable change or whatever, a benefit from what you're advertising. I just didn't find that to be the case with this. All right, next. So with the striker spring assembly, like I was showing you before, and how I had assembled it incorrectly and how I couldn't rack the gun, there is a tiny little spacer right here, and you'll see it. This little thingy is a optional piece that goes on the back of the striker spring, and while the manual recommends that you keep it in place, I found that you can operate this without having it in place. But the thing is, there is nothing holding this little tiny plastic part into the spring. It's all tension. So let's say you're disassembling this, you push that lever over, and the whole thing just goes. It shoots out, right? That little piece there is probably going to fall out, fly out. It's going to get lost at some point. And to me, that's not a good design. Why have it in there at all if it's going to get lost and you can still operate the gun without it? I don't see a point for it. So kind of a small con there. So next, I do not like the slide serrations on this one bit. I don't know if it's the finish on the slide, the Cerakoting or whatever is going on with these, but these serrations are very shallow. They appear deep, but they're very shallow, and my hand has slipped racking this more times than I would care to admit. That just doesn't happen with pretty much any of my other pistols, so I don't know really what's going on with this. I find way more traction up here at the front cocking serrations than the back, that's backwards to me. It shouldn't do that. Don't like it. So when I was shooting it, it doesn't like certain ammo. Big surprise there, right? So there's a difference between a gun not liking certain loads, and there's also a difference between guns that like a certain load, right? When I say a gun doesn't like certain loads, it means that I had malfunctions, I had issues, I had whatever was going on with the gun. It just would refuse to shoot it correctly, and that can be either malfunctions, jams, not feeding, stovepipes, accuracy issues. I've seen that before. This gun had all kinds of issues with certain loads, and I found that to be a little unacceptable considering the rest of my 9mm pistols never had issues with those loads. So in particular, the 9mm Inceptor loads, the 65 grain yellow box target ammo, it's a polymer bullet basically, super lightweight. This gun hated them. It would jam every single shot, stovepipe, short stroking, wouldn't reset the striker. It wasn't shooting it well at all. And also the accuracy was subpar from what I've expected to see from Inceptor ammo. Inceptor ammo normally, in every other gun I've run it through, has been exceptionally accurate for what it is. This gun was shooting it all over the place. So it probably just doesn't like those lighter grain loads. But then I put it in the P7. The P7 cycled it perfectly. So I don't really know what the issue is with this gun and that ammo. It doesn't like it. Some Fiocchi 115 grain loads, which is about as basic as ammo as you can get, is 115 grain FMJs for 9mm. Very basic load. I had short stroking on this gun occasionally, but not often. That's almost unheard of for any other pistol that I've run in 9mm. They love the Fiocchi 9mm loads. They eat it up. No big deal. This one did not, and that is worrying. Because if your 9mm gun can't run 115 grain loads from any manufacturer, any brand, then you got some issues. So going back to the striker here. What I don't like about this is that in order to have the striker recocked and ready to go, you have to pull the slide all the way back. I mean all the way back. And there are certain times where I've actually been able to I'm trying to load it, and then I pull it back, rack it, right, put it around in the chamber. It actually chambers, but the striker hasn't recocked, right? So basically I've short stroked it. That is possible to do with this gun. I don't like that one bit, not one bit. I don't know what causes that, or what factor in the design makes it do that, but that slide has to go all the way back, I don't like it. I've had instances, even while I was firing, where the round would feed out of the magazine, it would chamber, and then I had a dead striker. Not great. So another claim to fame that Walther advertises for this gun is that it has up to 33% less recoil than similar guns of its size and type. In my very limited shooting experience, no, that was not the case at all. It recoiled pretty much the same as any other, striker fired polymer frame 9mm pistol that I have in this size. It just didn't make any difference to me whatsoever. Is there less recoil, noticeable recoil difference? Yeah, maybe there is, but nothing that I could really perceive as being significant. So let's see. So I already went over the magazine release. Oh, and so with carry guns, right? I always advocate trying to test a +1 test, right? So a +1 test is where you put a round in the chamber, and then you insert a completely full magazine into the gun, shoot it, see how it performs, right? This is very, very important for me, especially in a defensive gun, because I always carry a +1, because more shots is always a good thing. So there are certain guns out there that refuse to do +1s, and this is one of them, unfortunately. So what ended up happening is I would lock it back, put one in the chamber, close the slide, put a mag in, fire it, and it would either short stroke or stovepipe, even on very hot loads that it liked, like 124 NATO spec ammo, which this gun seemed to like the most. Even with those, it would short stroke, stovepipe, jam, not reset the striker. It would have a malfunction on a +1 every single time, and I just that's not ideal for a defensive carry piece like this is intended to be. So it absolutely, it's absolutely imperative that you test in your defensive carry gun a +1 test with hopefully the ammo that you intend to carry, but it just wasn't there. It wasn't doing it. It wasn't performing the way I wanted it to. So disappointing. That being said, that is pretty much my whole list of cons, and I've talked for about 24 minutes now about how not great this gun is. But we have to remember, this is, at least for me, it was a $300 pistol, from a very reputable name in pistol manufacturing. I'm a little disappointed. I think Walther could do better with this gun, maybe make an M3 or something like that. But needless to say, this does not hold a candle to a P7 or even a Steyr GB. It just doesn't. This is not a P7. This is not even close to a P7 in terms of quality, shootability, how it shoots. It's not even close. It is a neat little curiosity. you know, it's pretty cool that it has a different operating system from what we're used to. It's not a Browning system. That's pretty cool. But honestly, other than that cool factor and just not being very functional, I just, I don't know. I'm very meh about this gun. You know, compare it to other striker fired polymer frame 9mm of this size and cost. And, you know, I would, in terms of sheer practical use, I would probably go with a Ruger Security 9 over this, you know? So, yeah, a little disappointed in Walther for making this, and I wish it was better and more functional. But maybe I just need to put some more rounds through it. Maybe I need to try it in different environments, different uses. Maybe I just need to break it in, try different ammo, different magazines, something like that. Maybe maybe there's more to this gun that I just quite haven't experienced yet, because like I said, I've only been about 170 rounds through this. So that is really not a whole lot for any kind of thorough evaluation and testing, at least in my personal opinion. I think you should have at least 500 to 1,000 rounds through a gun before you can consider yourself even somewhat familiar with it. But that's just my hot take, first impressions, whatever you want to call it. I wish it was better, and we'll definitely see as I put more rounds through it if it does shape up, and you know, maybe it just gets better. I don't know. I'm hoping it does, because I kind of want to keep it. It's pretty cool, you know, a poor man's P7, I guess. But yeah, we'll see where that takes us. So anyway, I've yapped long enough about this pistol. So expect a follow up probably around when I hit the 500 mark, 600 mark. I'll come back and see if anything has improved about it. So yeah, we'll catch you next time.